Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 643. 643. Sunday, December the 23rd, 2018. Thank you so much for tuning in. Well, we are in the government shutdown. Temporary shutdown, I guess is what they call it. So let's take a look at some of these agencies that are either shut down or shut down to pretty much the bare bones minimum of operations. So let's go through this list and see how we feel about it. Okay, it looks like we have the Department of the Treasury. That's right, Department of the Treasury will be one of the organizations that will be mostly shut down, and that's a good thing. In fact, I think we should permanently close the Department of the Treasury. It's nothing but a bunch of goons from Goldman Sachs who steal our money, and they participate very closely in that with the Federal Reserve. We should abolish both the Treasury and the Federal Reserve. We should never reopen the Treasury under any circumstances. Trump needs to take this opportunity while they're shut down, hopefully for until 2020, shut them down before we abolish them, and give Trump the opportunity to create a Bank of the U.S., and then allow all 50 states to have charter banks where they can print their own money, duty-free, tax-free, interest-free, for the citizens and businesses of their state to use to conduct commerce. The Department of Agriculture. Fantastic. Well, this is just another one of those over-bloated agencies. They of course have their own thuggish police force, their own paramilitary forces. Mostly what they do is, in fact, let's see, the Department of Agriculture, how many tons of fruits and vegetables did they grow last year? 0. How many pounds? 0. How many ounces? 0. They did not produce a single vegetable or fruit in the entire year, or ever. Mostly what they do is they use their paramilitary forces and their bureaucracies to harass businesses, agribusinesses, who really don't need them around. Agribusinesses are subject and liable to civil lawsuits. If they do something with their product that causes a problem, they get sued. That's enough. We don't need the Department of Agriculture. Glad they're shut down, and we should never reopen them either. The Department of Homeland Security. My. Of course, we all remember how that came about from George W. Bush after 9/11. Just another bloated bureaucracy. The fact that the FBI, the CIA, the DIA, the NSA, and 26 other agencies couldn't figure out what was going on, so they had to create another department. And primarily what they were supposed to do is they were supposed to make sure that there was information sharing. What a stupid idea. If 26 organizations didn't know how to share information, how is adding another one going to change that? It won't. It was just another idea to create another great big fat bloated bureaucracy where Bush, Cheney, and all their friends could pocket some more billions of taxpayer dollars for doing nothing. Nothing. How many terrorists have they captured? None. We should never reopen the Department of Homeland Security. I'm glad they're shut down, and hopefully they'll never reopen. The Department of the Interior. What the hell do they do? I have no idea. Therefore, they must not be very important. Let's never open them again either. Glad they're shut down. The Department of State. My oh my. What a wonderful job they've done. Let's see, over the past 40 years, how have things worked out with our State Department and all the corruption they've been involved in. Remember Susan Rice? Remember all the people at Department of State? The rotten Reverend Clinton? Let's see. They sold off 20% of our nation's uranium to the Russians. Well done. Well, with incompetency and corruption like that, do we really need to reopen the Department of State? I don't think so. I don't think so. Nope. I would say that the State Department should never reopen again. I'm glad they're shut down. Let's abolish them as well. How about housing and urban development? Well, you know, I like Ben Carson. I guess he needs a job. He could go back to doing brain surgery, but I think his eyesight's going a little bit south these days, so that might not be a good idea. But maybe we can find something else for Ben to do, and we should never open the housing and urban development bureaucracy again. It's just another big bloated bureaucracy. Does nothing that the states can't do for themselves. Just more bureaucracy, more hassle, more bullshit from the deep state. I say, awfully glad the Housing and Urban Development Department is shut down. Let's never reopen them either. Abolish them as well. Oh my goodness, the Department of Transportation. Been to the License Bureau lately? I think that speaks for itself. No! Shut down the DOT. Never reopen. Abolish them too. Department of Commerce. Oh my goodness. Who is the number one group of individuals fighting from within the deep state to keep us from getting a border wall? It's the hacks at the Department of Commerce. That's exactly who it is. These are the very people who are behind it, most of the blockage. And all their friends, and we know who they are. So happy that the Department of Commerce is shut down, never to reopen, if we're lucky. Oh my goodness. Oh my. It appears the Department of Justice. Oh, the Department of Justice. Oh my goodness. Yes, we should never. In fact, we should abolish them immediately. They should never reopen. What have they done besides try to orchestrate a deep state coup and then block the evidence from being revealed about the real crimes that were committed? The Department of Injustice should be completely abolished. Completely abolished. Never to reopen again. But don't you worry, Uncle Bob the Executioner, as I understand, he won't be shut down. He has got unlimited funds to go as long as he needs to go. He's taken care of. He's running the Department of Justice anyway. And the country at this point, it appears. Let's have a big round of applause for all these agencies, departments of the government that are now shut down. Thank God. Let's make it a nice long shutdown. Let's see if we can go to 2020. Absolutely. And maybe in the process along the way we can abolish most of these before they have a chance to get restarted. They do nothing. Nothing. Good. Let's see. Rachel Madcow says that Putin ordered Trump out of Syria. She's nuts. But we already knew that. You know, as I mentioned yesterday, I gave you an example of Trump derangement syndrome. You know, we're really about 2 years into Trump derangement syndrome. You know, we knew about the short-term effects of it, but we really weren't sure about the long-term effects of Trump derangement syndrome and exactly how much of the inner cortex of the front brain lobe that would actually be deteriorated after a couple years of Trump derangement syndrome. But now, as we can see from a couple stories that we've had in the last couple days, we can see that there truly is some more serious long-term damage associated with Trump derangement syndrome. And it appears that Rachel Madcow is now entered into stage 4 of Trump derangement syndrome. And I don't know, send her a basket of fruit. Well, will not be grown by the Department of Agriculture, but send her a basket of fruit and a get well card. She needs it. And get her ass off the air. Now, let's go ahead and do the news reporting for Rachel Madcow because she's too stupid to actually do some research and find out exactly what's going on in Syria. Trump was on the phone talking to Erdogan and Turkey, getting him to cut a deal, which is basically leave the Kurds alone. Leave the Kurds alone. At which point in the conversation, Erdogan said, you know, you've wiped out 99% of ISIS, Al-Qaeda in Syria. Don't even know why you're still there. They only hold like 1% of the country. Pretty sure Bashar al-Assad can take care of that. But of course, the fact is you guys are there to take out Assad, which of course would only cause greater destabilization in that region and would likely lead to a larger war, and then you'd be in it with both feet. But of course, that's what you wanted all along. To which point, Trump looks over at Bolton and says, well, is that true that they only control 1% of the country? And Bolton's like, well, yeah, pretty much. And Trump said, that's good enough for me. We're getting out. Trump is also... So he's got the commitment from Turkey that they will not harass the Kurds. But something else he got is Trump has got a deal with Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. They are going to replace our troops that we're pulling out. They're going to put their troops in there, and they are going to make sure and ensure that the Kurds are protected. Finally, we should mention to Mad Cow that Congress never authorized any boots on the ground in Syria. Obama put them in without congressional approval because he couldn't get the votes. And too many cowards in Congress were too afraid of the deep state to stand up and call him out on it. So they looked the other way. Trump's absolutely right to take the troops out of Syria. Give them a couple weeks of rest, let them visit the family, do their thing, then send them down to the border where they're really needed. NBC is claiming that the Russians were helping Jill Stein, and that's why the rotten Reverend Clinton lost Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. And the proof that the Russians were helping Jill Stein, costing the rotten Reverend Clinton Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin? RT News were supporting Jill Stein. They covered her campaign. Yes, and in covering the Jill Stein campaign, RT, an arm of the Ruskies, cost the rotten Reverend Clinton Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. Well done, NBC, you morons. Only a fool could write a story like that, but that's what they did and broadcast it. That's how desperate they are. The rotten Reverend Clinton wasn't going to win 2016. I don't give a damn who she ran against. Pat Paulson. We could have drugged Pat Paulson back from, what, Laugh-In? Was it Laugh-In? We could have drugged him back along with, what's his name? I used to like the one guy on there, Yul Brenner, or is that his name? I forget his name. He was funny, though. Very, very funny. Very funny man, and you can tell I like humor. Now, the rotten Reverend Clinton had no chance. No chance. I believe every single Republican, including Lindsey Graham, would have beat her. Every one of them would have beat her. The country was never going to be ready for the rotten Reverend Clinton. We know her too well. Louis Gohmert has introduced a bill that would remove liability protections from big tech companies. This would allow people to sue them for discriminating against users based on their political views. Oh my goodness. They definitely need to pass that bill. Oh, they definitely need to pass that bill. That'll take care of things in a real hurry. And I can assure you, the class action lawsuits, multi-billion dollar class action lawsuits will stack up to the sky in a matter of days. I mean, the lawyers, the trial lawyers are not going to miss out on that kind of bread. Believe me, that's way too much money for them to walk away from. And they got plenty of potential clients. Call Alex Jones. He'll be waiting on your call. Right along with PewDiePie, Sargon of Akkad, and many others. The Obama administration spied on Netanyahu, president of Israel, during the Iran deal, as well as many opponents of the Iran deal in Congress. Really? Who the hell didn't Obama spy on in 2016? Who didn't? That's the best question. Who did not Obama spy on? Because he apparently spied on everyone else. He should have been spying on the rotten Reverend, and maybe Chrissy Steele, and Mr. Misfid, and Mr. Halper. Unfortunately, they were working for him. Okay, Ted Malloch, who of course has been harassed by Uncle Bob the Executioner, a friend of Roger Stone's, has written an article, pretty good article. I am not going to go through the whole thing, but essentially he sums up what I have been pointing out. In fact, what I pointed out in the very first week that I started doing TowerGate videos, which is that the rotten Reverend Clinton knew about, approved, and paid for the Steele dossier from the very beginning and hid this fact from the press. She also has not been called out on it by the Federal Election Commission because it was a violation. And why did I know back in the very early days that it was likely a rotten Reverend Clinton operation? Well, I knew because I remember the Clinton days very well. And I remember that when the Clintons were in the White House, the rotten Reverend Clinton, while Slick Willie was destroying the country, the rotten Reverend Clinton was working up dossiers on all of their political enemies. And we know that when the Clintons left Washington, they took with them hundreds and hundreds of dossiers on all their political enemies and their political friends too. Because they blackmail everybody. They don't really have any friends. They just have people they use and people who use them. Not only that, but as I pointed out a very long time ago, when Slick Willie was making plans to run for governor of Arkansas, the rotten Reverend Clinton, without telling him, hired a couple private investigators to put together a dossier on him because she wanted to know what his opponents were, what dirt they were going to have on him when he decided to run for governor, because she knew she couldn't count on him to come clean about all those women he was banging in Arkansas and all the coke he was snorting and dealing and selling, along with his good friend George Herbert Walker Bush, operating out of the little airport there in Arkansas. You can dig into that if you want. It's a very, very long story, but the fact of the matter is, the rotten Reverend Clinton loves dossiers. And as I said a long time ago, she was behind the whole damn thing. And I am coming more and more to believe that she is the one who got Perkins Coie and said, hey, you're my middleman. You're going to be handling this. You're going to be calling Confusion GPS and Glenn Simpson. And he's going to put together this dossier for me. And there's another guy I want you to call Christopher Steele. And I've got some other players I want you to involve. I'm sure the rotten Reverend Clinton was completely running this operation herself. Everybody was working for the rotten Reverend, and she's got all of them by the scrotum. That's why they must protect her. In the recent hearings with the former director of the Federal Bureau of I'm With Her, J. Edgar Comey, Comey admits that he did not tell Trump who funded the dossier when he gave him that briefing, even though he knew. And when asked why, he said, what did it matter? Didn't think it mattered to tell Trump that the PP-Gate story that he was being informed of was actually paid for by the rotten Reverend. Didn't think that was important. He also admits to knowing that the rotten Reverend Clinton paid for the dossier before he signed off on the first FISA warrant on Carter Page, which was largely based, almost completely based, according to Devin Nunes, on the dossier. And of course, he also kept this from the FISA court. That's why J. Edgar Comey should be in ankle chains right now. Matthew Whitaker has been cleared by the Ethics Committee to oversee the Mueller investigation. He was suggested, they said, okay, you're all clear as far as we're concerned here on the Ethics Committee and through the DOJ. We think it would be a good idea if you recuse yourself, but you really don't have to. He said, okay, I'm not going to recuse myself. Thank you very much. So now Matthew Whitaker is now officially okay to go back in charge of Uncle Bob, the executioner, and his witch hunt. Let's hope he puts an end to it soon. It appears now that it's been conclusive that it was Uncle Bob, the executioner, and the Hillary donor posse, and Mueller himself that did order the scrubbing of the phones of Peter's Been Stroking Us and Loose Lisa Page. Mueller is the one who ordered the scrubbing of those phones. That's called obstruction. Obstruction. We know when you're a prosecutor and you're working a case, you're working for the Department of Justice, you're obligated to preserve all evidence. You are not permitted to destroy any evidence, whether it's evidence that's for you or whether it could be exculpatory. You must preserve all evidence that you collect, Uncle Bob. Do you think you'll be prosecuted for his crime? Remember our good friend Maria Veselnitskaya? Maria Veselnitskaya, of course, involved with Confusion GPS, was at the Trump Tower meeting, was working on the Magnitsky Act, was in John McCain's office snapping pictures and then getting a donation through his foundation and the whole 9 yards. Well, now we have more confirmation. In fact, we talked about this back in the summer of 2017, but now it's a little bit more concrete. So we now do know, it is confirmed, Veselnitskaya was working out of the offices of Cozen O'Connor, which is a law firm run by former Obama administration official, whose super PAC donated to the rotten Reverend Clinton. And a person who is a partner at that particular law firm lives in the same building as James Comey's good friend, Daniel Richman. That's the guy that James Comey leaked the memos to about the conversation with Trump, which ultimately led to the special counsel. Comey, of course, was in contact with Richman during the time that Comey and Fusion GPS were working to get the warrants to spy on Trump Tower. Remember, Veselnitskaya was given a special waiver to enter the country by the Obama administration Department of Injustice. Well, you know that Nunes, his House Intelligence Committee, and of course this joint committee with Goodlatte and Gowdy wanted to interview about 72 people over this past year. They ended up interviewing about a third that many. And they said that they were going to release all this by the end of the year. Well, now it turns out that the FBI and the DOJ have sent a letter back to their committees saying, I don't think so. And it looks like now the FBI and the DOJ are going to block the final reports by Nunes and the Goodlatte committees because they say it interferes with ongoing investigation. What are they talking about? The Mueller investigation. Remember, the Mueller investigation was set up to do two primary things. Number one, put all the focus on Donald Trump so that there will be no focus on the real crimes, the Spygate crime. And more importantly, to make sure that Uncle Bob, while he's having his investigation, could protect all the evidence that would incriminate the real perpetrators. That's his two primary functions. And here we see it in action, because they know that releasing these transcripts along with the other information that these committees have been asking for, including Grassley's committee, releasing that stuff, of course, will just shine more light of truth onto who the real criminals were, who perpetrated the real crimes, and this will be the evidence that you need to prove that. Another reason why President Trump needs to fire Uncle Bob. Paul Sperry. Paul Sperry's been looking into Mr. Huber. Mr. Huber. To find out what's going on. It appears that Huber does not have a grand jury impaneled and never has. He's never interviewed the three key witnesses, the whistleblowers, regarding the Clinton Foundation. Sources close to Huber's office say he was never supposed to investigate, only to look into whether or not there should be an investigation. And he is apparently determined there should not be, because it appears he's doing nothing. In fact, some people inside, these are witnesses, have stated that he was named just to provide political cover. Of course, Huber was supposed to testify, but the Department of Justice never cleared him, and he was never scheduled to testify. And of course, Rodenstein has never come to testify either to explain about why he was using the 25th Amendment or wanted to wear a wire. He's never explained either of those things either. Because the deep state is still running the show. Still running the show. Should also be noted that Carter Page has never been contacted by Huber's office, despite the fact that Huber was supposed to be looking into the FISA application that was taken out on Carter Page, and whether or not that was legit and legal. Yet they've never even interviewed Carter Page or even contacted his attorneys. Bruce and Nellie Orr have never been interviewed by Huber or any of his investigators. But we're told that Huber is supposedly working with Huckleberry Horowitz. Really? Well, guess what? Tom Fitton says that there are no documents at all to be had from Huber. Also, Horowitz answers to Uncle Bob, the executioner, on which documents he can get and see. Mueller is running the show. In other words, Horowitz is supposed to be doing the Inspector General report. He's supposed to be investigating all this stuff, Spygate and FISA warrants and all this other stuff. But yet we learn that he only gets to see the documents that Mueller will let him see, and only gets to interview the people Mueller will let him interview. Mueller is running the Department of Justice and damn near running the country. The Senate Judiciary Committee has received no documents from Huber, nor has Meadows received any of the documents from Huber that he's requested, because it appears that there aren't any. How about that? There you go. Okay. So yes, we are in this government shutdown. The only thing I can say is, once you're in it, you got to dig in. You can't back off. And I think Trump should go all the way to 2020 if that's what it takes. And I've said what I would do. Every single day from this day forward, he needs to. In fact, what they should do is get Stephen Miller or someone in the communications office to have a regularly scheduled daily briefing where he comes out, goes to the podium, and instead of talking about this as the government shutdown, they should call it the border security crisis. They should have a daily border security crisis, whatever you want to call it, press conference. They should have a daily border crisis press conference. And in that daily border crisis press conference, every day they should show illegals who have committed felonies against American citizens every single day, day after day after day, covering the crisis at the border. So I would turn this from a government shutdown into a border crisis fight. And I would stay in it all the way to 2020, to Election Day, till November 5th, 2020. And if I was Trump, I would also inform Schumer and McConnell. I would say, look, here's the deal. I want $5 billion. And if I don't get it in the bill by the end of December, then we go into January, I'm going to add another billion. I want $6 billion. And by February, it'll be $7 billion. And by March, $8 billion. In April, $9 billion. Every month, I'm going to add $1 billion to it. That's what you got to get me to sign this bill. Or I'll just leave the entire Department of Treasury, Agriculture, Homeland Security, Interior, State, Housing and Urban Development, DOT, Commerce, and DOJ. I'll leave the sons of bitches shut down for the next 2 years if I have to. I don't care. Do you care? No. You know what? This really doesn't affect hardly anybody across the country. You know, there's a few minor inconveniences here and there, but for the most part, this mostly affects people who live in D.C., 94 or 95% of which vote Democrat and hate Trump. The people feeling the most sting will be people in D.C. Outside of D.C., nobody else will even really notice. If you're a trucker, you'll notice because you get less harassment. If you're a farmer, you'll notice because you get less harassment. Everybody will be harassed a lot less, fined a lot less, screwed with a lot less. It's all good. I'd keep this damn government shutdown going until November 5th of 2020. And I would make it about border security. Every day, put the pictures of the criminal illegals up on the screen. Show us their name, show us the felony they committed. And I would do that day after day after day. That's exactly what I would do. That's exactly what I would do. Another thing, Twitch McConnell. Twitch wanted to get out of town and go home, snort some more coke or whatever he does. So, it appears that, there are 2 or 3 other ways that Twitch could have got this done. And one thing he could have done, he's talking about needing 60 votes. Well, you need 60 votes to cut off debate, for cloture. But what he could have done if he really believed in the cause, is he could have forced Democrats to actually filibuster this bill. He could have forced them to stay in Washington, D.C. all through Christmas to filibuster. Force them to go out there and give speech after speech after speech until they finally run out of members to give speeches, by which point we'd be through the holidays and they'd be out of gas. And then McConnell would only need 51 votes. That's what he could have done, but he didn't. Wanted to go home, back to Kentucky, do whatever he does. I think it would be a good idea if during government shutdowns that members of Congress would also have their pay. In fact, we should shut down Congress as well. If we're going to shut down all these other people, why not shut down Congress as well? What good do they do? They certainly should not get their pay. I'm full of ideas. Anyway, just want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas. Because of two reasons. Number one, there's literally nothing really going to be going on the next 2 or 3 days. If there is, I'll certainly do a video, but there's practically nothing that's going to break in the next 2 or 3 days. It is the holiday time. I got a lot of running around to do. I'm sure a lot of you will be busy with family. Might be a good idea to take a couple of days off from the torture and torment, because it'll all be back again in a few days. So I will not be doing videos on, this is Sunday's video, yes. Right? Yeah, Sunday's video. So I will not be doing a video on Monday, Christmas Eve, Tuesday, Christmas Day, or Wednesday, the day after, because I'll be busy Christmas, and that's usually, it will be that evening that I would do the video, so it'll be Wednesday. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, no TowerGate video. I'll be back on Thursday, and it'll still be slow between now and, January 2nd, January 3rd. There's not going to be a lot going on, but I'll certainly be continuing to follow the news every day and keeping track. If anything should happen that's really important, I'll certainly upload a video on it. But I don't expect to be much happening in the next few days. So anyway, Merry Christmas to everybody. I hope you all stay safe and have a very good Christmas. Hopefully be able to visit your family and have a good time. Forget about all this stuff for a couple days, and then we'll get back at it on Thursday. I'll be back on Thursday. We'll get back at it and see what happens next. Thank you all for tuning in. Thanks for all you guys supporting my channel, just showing up, watching the videos, participating in the comments section. Really appreciate all you guys. And it's kind of funny because I've never met any of you. I would like to someday. Maybe we'll have a convention somewhere someday and I'll get together. Of course, we do have a plan that if we ever do expose the criminals in Spygate, we're all supposed to meet down in South Carolina or North Carolina. We're supposed to meet down somewhere in the Carolinas on the tarmac with Mara to have a big party. And of course, we will do that. We will do that. If the perps are brought to justice, there will be a TowerGate convention somewhere in either North or South Carolina. I think it's North Carolina. And we'll party on the tarmac. But anyhow, I do feel like I have a lot of friends here, even though I don't know you. I feel like I know you from reading your comments, and and I feel like I've got some friends, on this channel. A lot of friends on this channel, even though I don't know you. I feel like I know you, and it's awesome to have people just come and watch my YouTube videos and support me just by watching. And participating in the discussions in the comment section and all that. So I do appreciate you all. I hope you all have a very good holidays and stay safe. And I look forward to being back with you on Thursday. You guys have a very good Christmas, and I'll be back soon. See you. Bye.